Two Oregon brothers just got hit with federal conspiracy charges as part of the massive investigation into the Capitol insurrection. And it turns out they've got some pretty strong connections to the Proud Boys. So let's dig into what that all means.
We're going to see the profile of these groups raise as they get more media attention, and people that are angry at the government are going to seek them out.
And starting next week, Oregon's homeless population can get vaccinated. But since we all have to sign up for an appointment online, how exactly is that going to work?
We need to kind of get them in their own slot, because as homeless people, we tend to stick together and support each other.
And a lot of you still have questions about what you can do once you get fully vaccinated. So we've got some more answers. Here's the story. And I'm Dan Haggerty. Thank you for being with us. Lots to talk about tonight. So all the ways to communicate with us. Again, we answer your questions. We try to every single night. We're reading them day and night. Reach out with all the contact information you see at the bottom of your screen and use that hashtag #HeyDan. Let's get started. And we're going to talk big story right off the bat here. And two more local people in trouble over the insurrection at the U.S. Capitol. Now, we have told you these types of stories before, but these guys are different for a few reasons. One, they're brothers from Oregon. Two, they were actually charged, not just investigated or accused or arrested and released, but formally charged by the feds. And three, they're members of a far-right extremist group I'm sure you've heard of. Kristen Severance explains why that's important to the criminal case against them.
Among the thousands of people who breached the Capitol January 6th were two self-proclaimed members of the Proud Boys from Oregon. Brothers 24-year-old Matthew Klein of Sherwood and 21-year-old Jonathan Peter Klein of Heppner were arrested on conspiracy and obstruction charges for their role in the Capitol attack. The Proud Boys are self-described Western chauvinists who deny any connection to the alt-right. Pictures and court documents show Matthew Klein allegedly breached a wall at the Capitol and helped others to do the same. Pictures also show the Kleins entering the Capitol and pushing through law enforcement. They're accused of leaving the building and then wrenching open a secure door to go back inside, forcing police officers to fend off the brothers and another wave of rioters.
Well, I think it's significant for a number of different reasons.
Alexander Ross is a professor at Portland State University. He has studied radical right groups.
These brothers actually have violent records in Portland and Salem, right? So they pretty much match a profile of a very violent right-wing counter-protester or advanced sort of insurgent in the Pacific Northwest.
This is video of Jonathan Peter Klein at a rally on September 7th in Salem. He's in the shirt with the orange sleeves, chasing a Black Lives Matter protester. Matthew Klein was cited for having a firearm in public a few weeks later after a Proud Boys rally in Portland. Police say they found shields, baseball bats, paintball guns, and Klein's loaded 9mm in the truck he was in.
Why is it a big deal that these two brothers were arrested who claim to be Proud Boys?
Yeah. I mean, what we're seeing is the federal government build a case around the January 6th insurgents that is looking like a larger conspiracy. And this is, by the way, how the Klan was brought down in the 1870s under our first anti-terrorism laws in this country, looking at conspiracies against the government. And so they are connecting the dots.
According to federal court documents filed this week, another right-wing group, Oath Keepers, allegedly communicated with the Proud Boys before the attack on the Capitol. In those documents, Oath Keepers leader Kelly Meggs wrote, "This week I organized an alliance between Oath Keepers, Florida 3%ers, and Proud Boys. Quote, we have decided to work together and shut this expletive down." And that Kelly had, quote, orchestrated a plan with the Proud Boys for January 6th.
Why is that significant that these different groups, are alleged to have communicated before the attack on the Capitol?
It really verifies a lot of what people were thinking going into this, that the Proud Boys started out as sort of like an attempt to create this urban, savvy, almost fashionable right-wing fight club. And increasingly over the years, they became more and more militarized and sort of started fusing with more paramilitary rural groups. And so their sort of hybridization and alliance with the Oath Keepers really indicates the extent to which this movement had accumulated power, organizing capabilities, and a shared ideology in a sense.
When two Proud Boys, get arrested, does that help or hurt their movement?
Yeah, this is a really important question because we're going to see the profile of these groups raise as they get more media attention, and people that are angry at the government are going to seek them out. We know from research out of London that Oregon actually leads in searches for how to join the Proud Boys of any state in the whole country. We're number one. And so there is increased attention placed on these groups that is going to bring people in.
I'm Kristen Severance, KGW News.
Now, let's check in with our vaccines, okay? We do this count every single day to give you an idea of kind of where we stand. And as of this afternoon, more than 1,046,000 Oregonians have gotten at least their first dose of the vaccine. About 3/4 of those people have gotten their second dose. And that puts us at about 24.5% of the state's population with that first shot. Washington had more than 1.8 million people with that first shot, which works out to be about 24.7% of the state's population. Now, last night on the show, we ran a story about the CDC talking about who you're allowed to hang out with and what you're allowed to do once you are fully vaccinated, which means, it's been 2 weeks since your last dose. That means you are all the way there, fully vaccinated. Now, if you missed it, our story, you can check it out on KGW's YouTube channel. But I know a lot of you still had some questions and you wanted us to clarify some stuff, like Aaron, for instance, who said, hold up, did I catch that one unvaccinated person is fine to get together with all vaccinated people and it's no big deal? So I wouldn't say it's no big deal, but yes, this is true. We've heard from a lot of you who say that's kind of hard to believe, but according to the CDC, one person who is unvaccinated can hang out with a group of people if those other people have all been fully vaccinated. Unless you are high risk, of course. If you are high risk, still live your life like you are high risk, regardless of who you are around. So keep that into consideration. But if you are the last person in your friend group to get a vaccine appointment and you are not high risk, there you go. So what about multiple unvaccinated people? Jude asked this one. He said, hey, Dan, if me and my family are fully vaccinated, is it safe to visit a group of friends that have been in a COVID bubble who aren't vaccinated indoors without masks and without social distancing? So this one kind of depends on how many people are involved in this situation. The CDC says an unvaccinated person or couple can visit with a group of fully vaccinated people as long as they are not high risk for COVID. So what does that mean exactly? I guess that kind of means 2. The limit is 2 unvaccinated people total in a group of vaccinated people. And experts say right now, you should probably keep your gatherings pretty small regardless, like 5 to 10 people max, even if everybody has had the vaccine and is fully vaccinated. Now, here's an interesting question from Paula. Can people who have developed natural immunity, antibodies, T-cell memory through recovering from COVID do all the same things that fully vaccinated people do according to the CDC? So the short answer here is no. So even if you have had COVID and have recovered from COVID, the CDC still recommends that you get vaccinated. Why, you're probably asking? They have an answer for that, and it goes like this. Since this is still a relatively new virus, health experts don't know exactly how long those immune cells will last in your body after you fought off COVID. So they just don't know how long you'll be immune. You can imagine there are so many studies about this going on right now, but there was one from the CDC in January, and they found that immunity starts to decline. It declined in most people 5 months after they were infected. So what does this all mean? Well, if you've recovered from COVID, it is not the same as being fully vaccinated. Let's pivot to this question from Pamela. She said, I understand those without homes will be eligible for the vaccine, but how will the vaccine be distributed? To sign up, we had to enter an address and a social security number. So she is right. On Monday, Group 6 of Phase 1B will become eligible, and that includes food processing workers, migrant and seasonal farm workers, and yes, Oregon's homeless population. That's thousands of people who don't have things like computers or reliable internet access to sign up for a vaccine. And it also includes a lot of people who don't have social security numbers. So like Pamela said, how is this all going to work? Here's Maggie Vespa.
I hope everybody do what they need to do for themselves. Stay safe. Keep your family safe.
Nettie Johnson.
New edition.
is not shy.
Come get your paper at New Seasons Woodstock. Holla.
She's been a Street Roots vendor for 3 years, usually selling at the Woodstock New Seasons. She was homeless for many more before that. With her dog Sunny Boy by her side, Johnson will tell her story to anyone who will listen.
I went straight to the convention center. I got there at 9:30.
This week, she's got a new angle.
By 10:10, I was out the door with my vaccine, Pfizer.
Johnson, who is high risk, got her first dose of the COVID vaccine Thursday. Come Monday, Oregon's entire homeless population can follow suit. That's more than 4,000 people in Multnomah County alone, many of whom don't have Wi-Fi, transportation, or reliable access to health care. So it begs an obvious question. How is this going to work? Turns out officials are figuring that out right now. And frankly,
this is not something that we're going to have done in 3 to 4 weeks.
Kim Taves is the Communicable Disease Director for Multnomah County Public Health. The agency is partnering with a slew of nonprofits, including Street Roots, Outside In, Cascadia Behavioral Health, and Wallace Portland. They'll help the homeless sign up for appointments and get to them. When booking appointments, people can use the addresses of nonprofits. And an important note, you don't have to plug in your Social Security number when signing up for a vaccine. They, like anyone else, can leave it blank. For those who can't travel to a vaccine site, Taves predicts pop-up clinics and street teams bringing doses to camps.
We're going to need to do some special work to bring the vaccine to where people are at or to where people get services already that they trust.
Trust brings us back to Nettie Johnson.
New addition today.
The county will be relying on people like her to act as ambassadors, helping to teach the homeless about the importance of vaccines. To that end, a quick note. Before we came out here to meet Nettie, I talked to her on the phone for about half an hour, and she told me there was one question she really wanted me to ask. And that's, as in her words, an African woman, what were her anxieties about getting the COVID vaccine? Here's her answer.
I don't know how to say this word right, but they kept talking about that experiment they did on them airmen. And everybody was like, I'm not having that. I'm not going there and signing up. They trying to kill us. And they start naming all kind of people, Jeff Bezos or Bill Gates. And I'm like, and so what I did is I had to use common sense.
Common sense.
I'm not going to sit around and die, waiting around to die when they got something to help me.
That's the story Johnson will be telling.
It's common sense.
Good thing she's not shy.
People know me here.
Maggie Vespa, KGW News.
Now, since we're talking about homelessness, we want to bring this up. Tomorrow, the Portland City Council is voting on some pretty controversial zoning changes. They let city-sanctioned homeless camps and shelters open up in many different parts of the city. And I know a lot of you have opinions about this. We've seen it. We've read your emails. We've been talking about this for a while. And I think the biggest complaint so far is that the proposal was going to let these camps set up in parks. You notice I used the word was, and I said that specifically because they're planning to change that part of it because they also heard your complaints. There are some amendments on the table. The first would make sure that camps and shelters can't be set up in natural resource areas like wetlands and forests and floodplains. The second one says they would only be allowed in paved areas. So that does mean that if there's a big parking lot that's near a park, then a temporary shelter could be set up there, but not actually in the park itself. Now, I spoke with the principal planner for the city about all of this earlier today, and he wanted to clear up a big misconception that he thinks people have about this proposal.
This project is really about where we site homeless shelter facilities that are run by nonprofits or public entities. It's not about where we allow individuals or groups to camp, ad hoc camping or just informal camping. It's not about that. It's about how we site facilities. And it's a whole nother question about how do we deal with the informal camping that we see along the road or in our public spaces right now. But this is about intentional facilities.
Yeah, okay, just to, if that wasn't clear enough already. So it's temporary camps and shelters that are sanctioned by the city and run by agencies and nonprofits. That doesn't mean that someone can just set up a tent and a camp wherever they want, whenever they want. The city council is voting on this tomorrow, so we'll keep you posted on what happens. So when we recycle stuff, where exactly does that go? I mean, does it really get reused, or does it just make us feel good about ourselves? And speaking of that, an Oregon senator is trying to do something about all that plastic pollution by getting big corporations to clean it up. When the story continues. Welcome back. I was just going through some of your comments and your emails during the break. I'm going to read a few of them at the end of the show. Use that hashtag, HeyDan. Also, we have a weekly newsletter now that we can send straight to your inbox, and it's full of all the stuff that you might have missed on the show throughout the week, plus some of the stuff that we just can't fit in here every night. We got an easy way for you to subscribe. Just take out your phone and text STORY to the number on your screen, 503-226-5088. We'll send you a link where it's real easy to sign up. Okay, so you just finished off that huge Costco jug of detergent. What do you do with it? Well, you're responsible, so you do what you're supposed to do. You take off the cap and you throw that part in the trash because you can't recycle that part. Why, you ask? One news story at a time. Anyway, you rinse out the jug and you throw it in the recycling. You do that thing with your hands where you're like, I'm all done, the universal sign for that, and then you sip some tea that was steeping all along while you glance out the window at a bird chirping and you think to yourself, I'm going to save this place, one jug of laundry detergent at a time. But are you? Kind of, but it's kind of out of your hands at that point, right? Because the stuff you recycle goes to a processing facility where they take out the pizza box that you thought was recycling but isn't. They sort through everything with huge machines that use magnets and other tricky gadgets to separate everything like metal, glass, cartons, plastic, all that kind of stuff. Then they smash it into a huge block and they sell it to buyers who clean it and process it and turn it into something new. But someone has to buy it. That's the catch. We've been reaching out to learn exactly what happens to all the stuff that we can't sell, right? And figure out kind of what they do with that. On the Oregon Metro website, there's this Q&A section that asks, what happens if we can't find enough markets to sell our recycling? But they don't really answer the question specifically, other than to say, we may also have to stop collecting some items if there are no markets for the materials they're made of, which I assume means that stuff would then go to a landfill, but we're going to find out the specifics once we hear back. I did find out that there are plenty of places to take those plastic six-pack holders that I became a little perturbed about this week while researching these recycling stories when I learned that these are considered trash by the sorting facilities, and I've been throwing them in the recycling bin where they just go to the landfill. And that's when Chris Cheris tweeted at me and said, hey Dan, the 6-pack and 4-pack can holders can be turned in at new seasons. All right. In fact, a lot of people hit me up about taking their recycling to New Seasons. And other people were kind of curious about it, like Dino. He said, hey Dan, New Seasons claims that they recycle items that curbside recycling doesn't accept for recycling. Do they have some kind of magic recycling machines that nobody else does? Look, I don't know about the existence of magic. I'm still investigating that, but we did reach out to New Seasons, and they told us that they sell all of their plastic film that they use in the store and the plastic film dropped off by customers to companies that make it into different stuff. In fact, one company has used 40 tons of plastic film to make decking boards. So I guess you could be out back eating a sandwich on a deck that was made from bread bags, right? That's what plastic film is, the kind of plastic covering the water bottles and the bread bags and all that kind of stuff. That said, most of the recycling that they take is the same kind of stuff you can put at the curbside. There are a few exceptions, right? Like the 6-pack holders that they will find a way to reuse. Now, on the show, we like to recommend things that we think are worth your time. And tonight, we've got this op-ed from the New York Times titled, Can Magic Mushrooms Heal Us? Now, I'm sure you remember Oregon voted to legalize magic mushrooms in November, kind of. It's not an outright legalization of it. You'll only be able to use it at a licensed therapeutic setting. Can't buy them in a store, take them home, grow them yourself, none of that kind of stuff. There's actually a 2-year development period that we're in right now before any of this actually goes into effect and happens. Governor Brown just appointed all the members of the state's psilocybin advisory board. Psilocybin is the element inside the magic mushrooms that has all of the effects that we're talking about here. And this op-ed looks at exactly what Oregon is trying to do and how psilocybin could help treat conditions like anxiety and depression. You should check it out. It's on the New York Times website right now. Now, if you have any questions about Oregon's new magic mushroom law, let me know. I know a lot of people get mad when I say magic mushroom law. They want me to say psilocybin, which either, right? Magic mushroom, psilocybin, we're all talking about the same thing. If you have questions, use the hashtag HeyDan. We're planning to dig a lot more into this, and we'll let you know what we find out, but help us kind of figure out what to cover. All right, I'm going to read some of your comments and finish the story right after this. Stick around. All right, so I got a couple of questions here. Welcome back. Oh, by the way, I did kind of forget to mention something on the recycling story. Oregon Senator Jeff Merkley just introduced a bill that would put the responsibility for cleaning up these plastics that end up in the environment not on me and you figuring out whether or not to throw a cap away or wash something out or all that kind of stuff, but put more of it on the corporations that actually produce them. We're going to be digging a little bit more into exactly how that will work and what's being proposed, but we'll let you know what comes of it. So if you have questions, let me know. John wrote in and said, hey, Dan. Oh, there's more? My producer says keep reading. You probably, okay. Yeah. You've probably heard about the KGW Great Food Drive. It's going on through the end of the month. How could I forget about this? We've been telling you, and we really need to get these numbers up. The need has never been higher than they are right now. A lot of you have been so generous, especially after you got some of that extra cash from the federal government. And I want to read some of the comments that you've been sending in with your donations. Becky said, this is my stimulus check. I'd like to help hungry Oregonians. Patricia said, money from my American Rescue Plan. Check given locally to help my community. And Denise wrote in and said, over dinner tonight, our family decided to donate most of our recent stimulus checks. And we discussed different organizations. Our 13-year-old son, Luke, chose to donate part of his allotment to your food drive. I mean, how great is that? Thank you for helping the families in our community. No, thank you. Thank you and thank your son. And I can't believe I almost didn't read these stories, and because this is the best part of what we do. And if you want to donate, just aim the camera on your phone at the QR code on the screen right now. I'll give you a link to donate. And so far, we've raised enough money for more than 2.5 million pounds of food. You have raised the money. We've just been kind of the conduit to do that. And we should also mention, all this week, Jack in the Box will match the first $8,000 donated. So that first $8,000, if you donate $1, count it as 2. So your donations go even further, of course. If you know someone who is in need, or you are somebody who needs some assistance, go to kgw.com/food drive. We want to give everybody a big thank you who has helped with this: Pacific Foods, Toyota, Rivermark Community Credit Union, and Safeway for supporting this year's food drive. Okay, now to my phone. You know, I'm just like everybody else. I can't put this thing down. Right away, I want to stare at it. John wrote in and said, hey, Dan, stop looking for the worst. Lots of good people doing good things. Maybe not in a dramatic way, but one person helping another is just as good. I agree with you. We tackle certain topics on this show. There was a show we have the news at 6:30 after me with Laurel Porter, and then after that, we have a show called The Good Stuff. You should watch it, DVR it. Look it up online. It's all the great stories and the wonderful things happening in this community. And you're right, there's a ton of it going on. Jim Sinclair had a good kind of thing to help me solve my trouble with the 6-pack cans. He said, buy a 12-pack. They come in cardboard. You're a smart man, Jim. You're a smart man. That's the story for tonight. Thanks for being with us. Sloppy ending, man. What am I doing? I need to practice. We'll see you tomorrow.